Hi, everybody. I'm Blaine Gilmer. Welcome to this special edition of Bulldawg Illustrated's the 2021 season kickoff show. Yes, it's only February, but the season never stops when it comes to Georgia football. And I've got some very special guests here. I'm going to introduce them right now. We've got the founder and lead editor of Bulldawg Illustrated, Vance Levy, and the multimedia director, and as Mr. Levy likes to say, the blogger extraordinaire, Greg Poole. Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. It's good to see you guys. Gosh, one of these days we're all going to get to be together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So COVID, we will touch right off the bat. Of course, we're going through these unprecedented times as we've heard that saying too much, unprecedented, and that's something we don't want to hear anymore. We want to get back to a little bit of normalcy, but the 2020 season was anything but normal. And I think we need to touch on that just a tad before we move on to 2021. Obviously, Georgia ends up outside of the playoff picture, but they finish up with a nice win in the Peach Bowl over Cincinnati. Want to just get each one of you, and I'll start with you, Vance. Just give me kind of what was your takeaway from the 2020 season for the Georgia Bulldogs?
Yeah, and I appreciate you giving me a heads up so I could think about it a little. But, I mean, really, if you go all the way back to the first game, and to me, it was like this the entire season. Art Monken's offense had people open all year. And unfortunately, at the beginning of the season, yes, we had the quarterback situation, but we also had a crop of receivers who were learning on the fly. And, but again and again, we had people open all season. And, to me, that was a bright thing. I joked to people, we hadn't had people this wide open since Wayne McDuffie and Eric Zier during my day. And that's nothing against Rick and Bobo's offense, which produced a lot of yards and whatnot. But, I mean, I was really pumped that we had guys open. And that, to me, that you look forward, makes me realize, I mean, we could be on to something. And really, if we can put it all together, it really gets you excited about the 2021 campaign.
Absolutely. There's definitely, as you said, there's a lot of things that sparked people's interest about that Monken offense. Like you said, there was a lot of stuff going on. I mean, heck, guys, they were up on Alabama at halftime in Tuscaloosa, and a lot of people don't realize it wasn't just execution stuff. It was alignment things and stuff like that. I think even in the pick where they threw it to Jermaine Burton going down in the third quarter, where it just glanced off his hands on that in-breaking route, that wasn't even technically supposed to be him running the route. I think they misaligned, and George Pickens was supposed to be the guy running that route. So, it's things like that people don't understand how close they were in Monken's offense. Greg, what kind of caught your eye on the 2020 season?
Yeah, you guys have covered it. I mean, let's face it. Last season, just discounting the COVID stuff altogether and just talking about football, last season was about starting the season without how I want to phrase this, frontline quarterback. And certainly nothing against Stetson Bennett. Man, he played his tail off. And, you guys are talking about the Alabama game. Who was the quarterback when they were leading Alabama? So the kid played his butt off. But there's obviously a talent difference, and JT is the one that's going to make them or break them this season.
Absolutely. And in fairness, I mean, Stetson kind of caught fire there early. Some people had him ranked like fifth in the Heisman stuff after his first 3 games with Georgia. I mean, he was balling out to start off with, and then it catches up with you when you have some physical limitations and stuff like that. And definitely you see that talent, that just raw talent that came once JT Daniels took over the reins. Also, I think it's fair to point out that 2020 didn't come without its share of injuries. They were decimated on the defensive side of the ball when they played Florida, things of that nature. So, and I think if you have a couple key pieces back for that game, especially in the secondary, that's a whole lot different. One person I would like to just briefly touch on 2020 before we move into 2021 and kind of commend that I think a lot of people don't give quite enough credit to is Monty Rice. Monty Rice laid everything out on the line for this Georgia program, played hurt. Played when he didn't have to play. And, when he knew he was going to go be a pretty solid pick in the NFL draft and still came back, played, like I said, played hurt and just did everything he could leadership wise and everything else. So I think you ought to commend old Monty Rice there, who's a dang good Georgia Bulldog. So, but now guys, looking ahead into 2021, there's some obvious strengths, kind of reminiscent of 2017, a lot of guys coming back, a lot of leadership coming back, a lot of production coming back. The quarterback position, we've all kind of touched on that. Vance, what do you think about just the prospect of just having JT Daniels and kind of knowing we got the guy, Georgia has the guy kind of coming on?
I mean, all you can be is excited, but it is interesting. I lean more towards, I think what gets us over the hump and, let's face it, in my opinion, it comes down to Clemson, Auburn, and Florida with that schedule. I mean, that schedule is so manageable. But I think the running game is, and I enjoyed your piece recently, Blaine, where you compared the 17 running back core to the 2021 coming up. The only thing I worry about out of this current crew is, unlike Sonny Michel and Chubb, we haven't seen very many, long runs, game-changing, breaking runs, and that's kind of the only ingredient missing out of this current staple of backs, which you said, you nailed it. I mean, it's a sickening plethora of talent, but I do, can we get some big gainers that, between, those things just mean a lot in a big game.
Oh, absolutely. And Greg, you do a piece every week on the offensive line, specifically in the trenches. Having the quarterback like JT Daniels and having that plethora of running backs, all the receivers to throw it to, it doesn't mean anything if you can't protect it and block it up. So what do you think about the three starters Georgia has coming back and kind of the prospects for the O-line looking forward in 2021?
I think they should be okay. I mean, these are I'm talking about the kids that are basically coming up. The starters, obviously, we know about, but the younger kids, they should be okay with them. They're all very talented. You're not going to be relying on true freshmen, or how about redshirt freshmen? Who else have we got in there? I was just looking at it. It looks like to me, there are a couple, but they should be in good shape. And you got the Mims kid coming in. People are talking about this kid playing as a freshman, and frankly, I think he probably can. Although it is the offensive line, and it's very unusual to get quality minutes from a freshman on the offensive line. But I think if anybody can, he's one of them. He'll be close.
To say the least, it is a tall order to play, especially at left tackle in the SEC as a freshman. But I think, a lot of people need to be really excited about Cedric Von Granger, what he can bring to the center position as a redshirt freshman. Tate Ratledge is there that can play some guard or tackle. He's really a swing type guy. Redshirt freshman. And then also Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones was maybe the most coveted player in all the 2020 class for the University of Georgia. Unbelievable athlete, great basketball player in high school, has tremendous feet. He got in that Georgia weight room and added that Georgia weight room and nutrition program. He's added weight to go with that athleticism. So he's going to be pushing, and of course you got Warren McClendon and Xavier Truss. I mean, really an embarrassment of riches out there on the outside with the talent they have. It's just trying to make those pieces fit. And I did mention Cedric Von Pine Granger, but don't forget Clay Webb is right in that mix as well. And Warren Erickson. I mean, they've got a ton of guys that are.
Clay Webb seems to be over his physical problems. Has gained some weight back. He's right at 300 pounds now. And frankly, in high school, he was one of the best centers I ever saw in high school. Saw him in a camp after he graduated, and he just took over the offensive line there. I'm expecting him to come along, even though he hasn't shown us much yet. But.
Absolutely.
I mean, Blaine, I'm more concerned about the defense personally. And I mean, who do y'all think is like in charge of the defense? I mean, of course, Jordan coming back is big, but I mean, a defensive lineman kind of being the leader on the defense is, that's a little. Who's in charge back, do you think? Obviously Monty last year pretty much, and then of course LeCount. But who do you think are the main guys that are going to be the leaders and really be pushing everybody in the right direction?
Oh, I think by both example and demeanor, the unquestioned leader of the defense is Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean, he had to fill that void a lot when Monty never really missed games, but he missed extended periods of games because they were trying to just spot play him when they could at times, and Nakobe Dean really solidified the middle of that defense at times. I think people two guys that people aren't going to give enough credit to in terms of leadership is because Richard LeCount was there. Chris Smith and Lewis Seen are rock solid guys in that secondary. Georgia, the big theme this whole offseason has been inexperience in the secondary, right, Greg? I mean, that's what people have been talking about. But people don't realize Chris Smith played the whole second half of the season and played well. And then Lewis Seen, except for knocking Kyle Pitts' head off and getting kicked out of that game, he played tremendously throughout the year. Which Lewis may have to dial it back. He's got a little too much Greg Blue in him. I mean, Greg Blue couldn't get away with the stuff today that he did back in the day. But yeah, I think that'll be the case. Have either one of y'all seen the GPS numbers, the miles per hour numbers that Keely Ringo, Arian Smith, and some of those guys have been putting up? I mean, Keely Ringo, 22 miles. I think Arian Smith hit 23 miles per hour. Somebody said Arian Smith is going to get a speeding ticket on campus on the campus zone because of how fast he's running. But
Vance can do that.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. But no, I think in theory you're right, Vance. The inexperience in the secondary is the overall big question mark on the defense. You loaded up front. You got Devonta White coming back, Jordan Davis coming back. You got guys like Trevon Walker, Jalen Carter. I mean, a ton of guys.
So is Chris Smith going to be the guy that makes sure they're set in the defensive backfield? Who's the guy? Who's the captain of the DBs?
I think a lot of that will fall onto Chris Smith. I think Lewis Seen will catch a little bit of that too because they play split field defenses. So oftentimes people don't realize not only are the front seven or it's front six at times detached from the back five, also. These three guys on this side of the field can be playing a different coverage than these two on this side. I mean, it's not a simple defense that Georgia plays, which another point I'd like to bring up is one thing that I think is a big strength for Georgia this year is staff continuity. Georgia didn't, this is the first year they didn't, other than Charlton Warren going to Indiana and becoming their defensive coordinator, which you can't blame anybody for taking a promotion like that. I mean, the continuity they were able to have on the staff is huge, is it not?
I mean, you can't ask for anything better, and I think it's a great thing because without a doubt, this is a pressure cooker year for Kirby. I mean, you got to get back to Atlanta. When you look again, I mean, I'm not being overconfident about that schedule, but I mean, you know, South Carolina, Tennessee, I mean, they've got problems for a while. So, you know, I like the fact that they have the continuity. I think they've been there, they've done it. They should be able to handle the pressure because, like I said, it's definitely get back to Atlanta or the crazies will be crazy in the Bulldog Nation.
Absolutely, Greg. You're there. You know, in Athens, you hear the rumblings on the day-to-day basis. You know, it was very close to losing a couple of those guys, though. You know, Adele McGee to an Auburn. You know, his alma mater. You know, Dan Lanning had serious interest from guys. You know, just how big is it keeping those type of pieces, and a Todd Hartley as well?
Yeah, I think he's going to have to keep his coaching staff together as much as he can. Although the success that he's having is going to get him offers, so there will hardly be a year that somebody doesn't get a promotion, you know, or whatever, maybe move on, get fired. There's going to be turnover. Hopefully, there's just one or two a year, though. Staff continuity is important.
Absolutely. I think in terms of having the stars align, you know, they've not had a quarterback that's established in the way that JT Daniels is established since, I would argue, you know, Aaron Murray, because even from always had those whispers of who's looking over his shoulder. You know, it was Jacob Eason. Is he going to let him come back and play? Justin Fields, that whole saga. But, you know, Matt Stafford, Aaron Murray, those guys were kind of set in stone. I feel like JT Daniels is that guy. Having said that, I do think, to your point, Vance, there's not one game this year, not one, in which Georgia should not be good enough to where Brock Vandagriff does not see the field in the game. Brock Vandagriff, I think, should play snaps in every game this year. Even the Clemson game, even if it's a series or two that's specifically designed for him, I think that would be big, not only for stability. Let's say something happens to JT going forward in the 2021 season, but beyond that as well. What are you guys' opinion on the Brock Vandagriff, you know, comparisons with all the Jake Fromm, Justin Fields, all that stuff that's in Kirby's past?
Well, he's got to earn the number 2 spot first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess y'all are assuming he's not going to. I think if I had to lay a amount of money on the table that mattered to me a lot, I would say Brock Vandagriff's the guy.
I just, you know, I hope he's able to really use this freshman year to learn. And like you said, I mean, and that has been the nice thing under Kirby is, you know, people probably don't realize, but we've had a lot of games that have been put away in the third quarter under Kirby. I mean, you know, which wasn't happening before. So with that being said, yeah, that does let you get some valuable reps for the number 2 and the number 3. And the future is so important. As we, you know, you got to have somebody ready, which, you know, unfortunately, when Jamie Newman went down and JT obviously wasn't available, we were in a bind last year. And, you know, kudos to the way we grinded it out. And, I mean, you got to be kind of satisfied with last year. I don't think we weren't beating Alabama at the end of the season. We played Alabama when we had the best shot at them because they got better, baby.
Absolutely, Greg. You seem to be
the very first time that Kirby puts Vandagriff in and calls a tailback ISO 3 times in a row, and he goes back to the sidelines. Our board is going to light up like a Christmas tree.
Absolutely. and if it's the last, last 5 plays of the game that he gets in a 45-0 win, something like that.
I do hope that Kirby will let him throw. You remember when Shockley would get series with David Green, he'd get whole series to play. It would be nice. I mean, obviously Kirby makes those decisions based on the game and so forth, but some of these games he could do that for sure.
There's
without
no doubt.
risking anything.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Kirby knew what Mark Richt knew the talent that he had in DJ Shockley, but he also just happened to have a talent that was somebody who was making big change at Georgia and David Green, but he specifically handled it to where it didn't matter what game, what the situation. DJ Shockley was going to get his 2 or 3 series in that game, and they were dedicated series. Unlike the Justin Fields situation, run him in for a play, run him out for a play, never get that kind of backfired a little bit. Now, I'm sure
unfortunately, he didn't bring Shockley in inside the 20s where David Green struggled. But I digress.
Absolutely, and there'll always be those situations, and we have the benefit of being able to pick at those things from our chairs here. But now that we've touched on the strengths of the 2021 team, we've touched on one recruit in Brock Vandegrift that could make a contribution here and there. I do think there's a core group of recruits that for in that 2021 season, true freshmen that will make a great impact right away. Obviously, the first one, I believe, is Nyland Green. Nyland Green, I think, can be the day one starter at corner opposite of Keely Ringo. He's that kind of athlete coming from Newton County down there. If he had focused purely on offense, he could have been an all-state D1 receiver if he wanted to. I mean, that's the kind of athlete that Nyland Green is. He has tremendous ball skills, can jump out of the gym. What are you guys' opinion on a guy like Nyland Green? True freshman. We saw it back when Tyson Campbell was a true freshman and started. Does that worry you much that Nyland Green could be penciled in as day one starter? Or are you kind of excited about his skill set?
It doesn't bother me. Everybody says he's great. I haven't seen him except on film, but if Kirby puts him in, he's probably a pretty good DB.
I would say so.
I go back to our early years of doing Bulldawg Illustrated, and Danzer, he was correct that he's like the one position in the SEC that's really hard to be ready from day one is defensive backs. And but we're entering year 19. The game and these players have advanced. And what did Alabama had 2 freshmen last year that basically. So there's now some real data that if a freshman can survive and thrive in the SEC in the secondary. However, I still believe Danzer's correct. That is one of the hardest positions for a brand new kid to pick up. And but everything like you said, I mean, it looks like he could be one of those special guys that could, be ready and get valuable reps and kind of, the Alabama's 2 guys from last year that they were kind of, as the season continued on, they were more and more part of that defense that really got, again, that's why I said the second time around would not have been I don't think as close for the Bulldogs.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I don't think anybody wanted a piece of Alabama kind of at the end of the year. Another guy on that defense that I think stands out real quick just from his physical stature and ability to be able to have the body to play right away in maybe a special teams role or a little bit at outside linebacker where Georgia has some depth issues with Jermaine Johnson, leaving Chaz Chambliss, outside linebacker from Carrollton. The guy is built like a college, junior already. Just a tremendous body on the kid, and he's able to, he's a lot quicker. His short area quickness is something that can really help him in the next level. And I just think, guys like that, he's kind of that blue collar type guy, that guy that isn't real flashy, but Kirby mentioned he likes those type of guys a lot. what do you think about a guy like a Chaz Chambliss from a winning program like Carrollton coming in and trying to help out in that outside linebacker mix with, even if it's a complimentary role?
I mean, he's a beast, and we're gonna, that's one position where we need somebody to step up. So again, I mean, this is why our recruiting classes have been in the top, 1, 2, or 3. These type of people, they're good enough, and hopefully Kirby, they can do what they have to do during camp and spring and whatnot, that they can get them on the field. Of course, there's a lot that goes into all of that. Injuries, how many freshmen have we known that tweaked something in fall drills? I mean, and that sets them back practically a whole season. So, but yeah, you got speed and a beast out of your first 2. And now you're about to get to the freak.
Oh yeah. And Greg, I wanted you to touch a little bit on Brock Bowers. I mean, from that tight end position, I wrote an article this week that Georgia's kind of silently becoming TEU, not just RBU and LBU, but TEU with the tight ends. Brock Bowers, just kind of touch on him real quick before we get into our breakdown of the schedule and our newcomers for the year. What do you think could happen with the Brock Bowers out of California?
Well, of course, he can come in and play, but he's got some pretty good bodies ahead of him too. But I think the kid will see the field. It probably will be into the season a little bit because, I mean, how many tight ends do they normally play in a game? Do you know off the top of your head, Blaine?
I think they'll have a few packages during each game where they play 3 tight ends in a game.
But I mean, how many of the total room get in during a game? 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
4, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially with special factored in.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to play. The question is, does he adjust to college ball, SEC ball, and is he does he live up to what he certainly should, and based on his high school career and numbers and so forth, and it probably will, but we really don't know that until fall camp is going on.
Absolutely. But he was deprived of his senior year living out in California. He didn't even get a high school senior season, so
that matters too.
That does matter. So this spring is going to be big for guys like him. Now, Vance, you touched on it, just looking ahead at the schedule. Obviously it's very favorable. Clemson, everybody's got September 4th in Charlotte circled. Lord willing, we'll be able to go there in person and all be there and cover it like normal. Looking forward to that. But in terms of the schedule, is there any, other than obviously that one, that opening game, is there anything that you're just, everything points to this? What are we looking at on the schedule this year for 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. It's Clemson, Auburn, and Florida. I think Auburn went and found themselves what appears a solid coach. He's put together a great staff, and Georgia and Auburn are, they've got experienced quarterbacks. So that now, can they have magic in year one? Hopefully not. And definitely can they have magic in the first 6 games? I'm glad we're playing them. We're now playing them early this go round because it really helped last year. I mean, when it got bumped up even more because they just, you could tell they had problems, inside, like internal problems, the way they showed up in Athens. I mean, that was not an Auburn team that we're used to seeing.
Absolutely. And Greg, we know Clemson is what it is, but it's just 2 powerhouse teams going up against one another. But what are your opinions of, can Dan Mullen in Florida put it together, put back-to-back seasons together in a similar fashion they did? Do you think Florida can play at this similar level, losing Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts?
Or I'll make it easy, Greg. Can Georgia cover the wheel route?
They're going to see it, that's for sure. They're going to see it every game. And the answer to that question is I have no clue. But if they do, it'll be the first one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just don't. I don't see. Personally, I don't see Florida being able to play offensively at the same level. Kyle Trask, I think, played over his skis. That just had an unbelievable, played above his ability the last 2 seasons, really for Florida. And Kyle Pitts was a kind of generational talent there at the tight end. I mean, he's like a Travis Kelce almost. Like he's that good of a tight end that played for them.
Florida is the weakest of the 3 must-win games, I think.
Oh yeah. That's a great point. I think people, obviously they're going to circle that September 4th, like I said. But let's keep everybody in mind. Yes, does Georgia want to win that game? Yes, should Georgia goal be to win and that be kind of a springboard towards the national championship in the similar way that Notre Dame game early on in that season kind of catapulted? Yeah, that would be great. But if Georgia goes up there and doesn't play their best ball, it has no impact on what goes on the rest of the year.
It doesn't, but they need to go beat them.
Absolutely.
Getting back to Florida, though, the thing that is impressive to me about what Mullen has done is his receiving core is just so tall and long. And, if you can find a guy that can run his system and throw the ball where it's supposed to be. I mean, Florida's always going to be problematic with the bodies they've got out there. And then, of course, they picked up the coveted guy from, that was at LSU that Georgia was after. So I don't know that I hope I think Florida's still, I'm with you, Blaine and Greg. Clemson's just kind of it's gravy on top of what hopefully is a great season that, you need to show up and represent and play solid ball, but who gets the win and the loss doesn't really bear on whether or not you can get in the playoff. And that's a nice luxury.
Absolutely. And so kind of to wrap it up here, the last little segment we're going to do is I want both of you to kind of pick who you think your newcomer of the year is going to be for Georgia. And then after that, we'll do our keys to the ending the 41-year drought for a national championship. So, Greg, who do you think, if you had to pick somebody to be the kind of that fresh face, that newcomer for Georgia, who do you think is going to be?
Well, I'm going to pick the first player from my old high school to ever play at the University of Georgia. His name is Lavassier Carroll.
There you go.
He's a running back who he played at Warren County in East Georgia and then went down to Florida and played at IMG. I don't, that's a loaded room. I don't know how many carries he's going to get. So I basically am picking him because we're from the same town. But
hometown bias there.
But he's a really good football player.
Absolutely. And Georgia, to a fair point, it is a crowded room, but Georgia loves to use those running backs on all special teams units and stuff like that. So I'm sure he'll contribute at some point throughout the year. Vance, who's your newcomer of the year?
Well, I mean, I'm going with a guy that, only got to play half a season last year. I mean, I think Kendall Milton is, who, when I talk about, that core of backs needing somebody to have those game-changing long runs. I look forward to seeing him in year 2. That's not that Zeus will it's nice. Like we learned under Sony and Chubb. I mean, the 1-2 punch is a heck of a weapon. And quite frankly, we could have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And that also, another thing that when we were talking about the receivers and whatnot, when you look at last year, we had, I think, 5 different receivers had the most receptions over the course of the season.
Leading the game in reception.
Leading the game. And when you talk about the freak tight end coming in, I mean, Monken has shown the tendency to spread the ball around, and that keeps people happy and it keeps defenses on their toes. So, I mean, that's exciting.
And to that point, the newcomer I think of the year will be, at least from an off. I'll give you one on offense and one on defense. I think that my one on offense is going to be Arian Smith. Arian Smith is someone who could have really, really just wrecked opposing defenses last year if he had been healthy. You saw it in the South Carolina game. His first ever catch is a bomb touchdown pass. He just has that Mecole Hardman type speed, to take the top off the defense, something that Georgia has missed since Mecole left. And the guy hit 23 miles per hour on their GPS tracker the other day. He hit 23 miles per hour. Keely Ringo hit like 22.3. These both guys can really, really run. I think Arian Smith is going to be, even if he's not getting the ball, I think he's going to make such a key difference by just being able to make a safety, clear out over top. And then that gives room for Jermaine Burton and George Pickens, guys who are really good in intermediate routes, get open. And then the other one that I think goes a little bit underrated, I think Latavius Brini, even though he's been around Georgia a long time, I think Latavius Brini is going to be huge for Georgia at the safety position. Everybody knows that Chris Smith and Lewis Seen are kind of there, but I think Latavius Brini is going to be a guy. He had a career high 5 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, a pass breakup in that Cincinnati game. Really, really played well. And I think that he's going to be a guy that really contributes in that 2021 season. So, other than that, guys, we've hit the newcomers. We've talked about the schedule. We've talked strengths and weaknesses. If you had to narrow it down to one thing, Greg, you go first. If we had narrowed it down to one thing, what's the key to bringing home that national championship for Georgia? If you say, what's your key to winning it all?
JT Daniels has to play. How many games would it be? 15. They still don't. Maybe by late in the season, they have a serviceable quarterback behind him that could win games. But
he's got to stay healthy.
He's the key. I mean. Last year, the difference in the team when before and after JT was night and day, and it would be the same this year in reverse if he got hurt. Except we all know that Vandergriff is a great talent, but would he be ready in 4 months or whatever?
Absolutely. Van, what do you think? What's the key for you?
I think it comes down to another year of maturity for Kirby Smart as the coach, and then his staff as a whole. I'll go back to the Florida game in the second quarter where, and unfortunately in the offensive-minded football we're in now, people are chasing possessions and, but anyone that was in that stadium knew that Florida had all the momentum. But because Florida was getting the ball back, Kirby, instead of getting to the locker room, we gave the ball back to them not once, but twice. And they got the ball back, all because we were worried that they got the ball back. And you saw a similar, outcome with this year's Super Bowl. I mean, that game was lost in the second quarter by a coaching staff that sort of panicked because they felt like they had to match points, even though the momentum, unless you weren't watching the game said get your fannies to the locker room and regroup. And to me, that's where I want to see Kirby improve this next year, is to really – and they got so many analysts now. Surely somebody can mic down there and go, yo, we have no momentum. Our players' hands are on their hips. Our defense is gas. Get to the locker room. And that, to me, that happens with more maturity as a coach. And Monken bailed on the running game in that Florida game. And, those moments matter because at the end of the day, those moments right there cost us a shot at least being able to play Alabama in the SEC championship. So they matter. They matter big time.
There's no doubt. And I think one thing that you're going to see that I think is going to really help. Now with Will Muschamp on staff, I've read an article about this not long ago. Georgia has 4 former college head coaches on their staff, so there should be plenty of brain trust, plenty of experience, plenty of calm at the helm this year. And I think Kirby Smart is by no means is he somebody who's not football savvy. I think he's going to learn from things that have happened, situations, and I think Georgia as a whole, it's basically the situation right here. I was talking to Greg the other day. If not now, when for Georgia, all the stars are aligned. They've got more talent than they've ever had on top to bottom. They've got the most staff continuity they've had. A quarterback who's a legitimate Heisman candidate if he stays healthy, as Greg alluded to. So I think the key for Georgia in this season, in terms of getting to the playoff and winning a national championship game, is going to be being able to consistently get people off the field on third downs. Georgia's defense has been great. It's been great under Kirby Smart, but there's been times in big games, and I point to the Alabama games, where when you're close, you've made those plays on first and second down. It's been key third downs that have hurt Georgia, that they've been able to extend drives, and then boom, or like first and second down, Georgia sacks Tua Tagovailoa, 2nd and 26. We get a big bomb for the national chip for the dagger, things like that. So I think if Georgia on third down defense is able to be solid, then I think Georgia will have a chance, because I think their offense is going to be off the charts, providing they stay healthy. But guys, we've been going here for a little while, so I think we're gonna call it wrap it up here on the kickoff show. But I really enjoyed talking about this, and I think like I just said, 2021, everything's out in front of the Georgia Bulldogs if they can put the pieces together.
I agree.
Amen.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Hey, we got to do this more often. We got to get, and like you said, Vance, maybe we can all get together and do it on location someday once COVID's over with.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they're going to be yesterday. They acted like we could get attendance announcement on G-Day any day now, and then I guess we'll have soon enough we'll know when practice is starting, because with G-Day on the 17th, it's starting pretty darn soon. A couple weeks.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Sure.
Keep an eye on the Braves, because I think as Major League Baseball goes with their attendance, I think that's going to be a big indicator for what's coming this summer with college football. So I think they're going to be watching that. So keep an eye on that. And guys, appreciate it. And it was a great time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on this Bulldawg Illustrated 2021 season kickoff show, because like we said, the season never stops, and we'll be back with you with maybe some player interviews coming up soon, working on a couple of those with some recruits and things like that. I'm Blaine Gilmer, and we'll see you next time.